Hi, this is Ed from Surreal Adventure, and I wanted to do a product review on this really excellent smartwatch, the Fitbit Versa. I got on a waiting list to receive this thing. I was one of the very first people to sign up and back order it when they announced it, and was one of the first people to get it when they started shipping it. There's been a lot of buzz going around about this thing, what it is, what it isn't. Not getting into too many technical details here, I will say that it's a little bit less of a computer than the Android Gear or the Apple Watch, but what it lacks in computer horsepower, it more than makes up for in exceptional battery life. Fitbit on their website says that you're going to get 4+ days of battery. That's no joke. You really do get 4+ days of battery. It is a relatively lightweight and small and extremely comfortable watch to wear. The front of it is Gorilla Glass, the case is aircraft grade aluminum, and the included wrist strap is a silicone, which is extremely comfortable. And the fixtures or the fasteners on here are I believe, either stainless steel or more aluminum that don't corrode. The watch is relatively small. As far as smartwatches go, it is surprisingly smaller than the Apple Watch. This, I would say, is roughly 1.5 inches wide, 1.5 inches square, really. The width of it from the screen all the way to the rounded edge of the base is about 3/8 of an inch. A lot of the reviews online were girls with really tiny wrists or guys with smaller or bigger wrists, and so it's really hard relatively to figure out what size this watch is. So this should give you a pretty good idea of it. As you can see, it's on the smaller side of things. The watch weighs in at only 1.37-ish ounces. That's with the larger band. I have a bigger wrist, so I have the slightly larger silicone band on it. Just for comparisons, this is a Casio Pathfinder, which we will fit on here. And that comes in at 2.47. And here's a more typical men's watch. It's an older Citizen, and with a metal band. As you can see, this weighs in at a whopping 5.7.5 ounces. So it's really lightweight. The apps that are pre-installed on it are mostly exercise related. There is a weather app, and there is an app store where you can go and download additional apps for the device. Everything is handled through your phone, including how the watch accesses the internet. So say, for instance, that I were to launch the Strava app here, and it has to look up the Strava data. Well, it's going to pull this data through your phone, not from the internet itself. So if your phone is nowhere nearby, if you go for a run or you go for a bike ride and you don't bring your phone with you, well, it won't have access to things like weather, and it won't have access to your exact location as far as GPS, because in order for it to use the GPS, it requires that your phone be nearby. When you start an exercise from the exercise menu on the watch, like bike ride or spinning or hiking or a treadmill or a walk, what it will do is on the ones that are where you're actually moving, like bike ride or hike or walk, is it will link to your phone's GPS, and then it will actually plot on a map when you're finished how far exactly it was you went, how far you rode, how far you walked. And it's really cool because it gives you granular information about your speed and your pace, the number of calories that you've burned, your heart rate, which is really cool. If you're a cyclist and you like to use Strava, you can link your Strava account to your Fitbit account, and then when you start the ride from your watch instead of from the Strava app, it automatically makes a copy of the data that it's recorded in its own little feed to the Strava app, and then it posts your heart rate to the Strava app. And so you can see all that good information as well. On the iPhone, you can answer the phone or decline the call from here. And it's pretty neat because whenever a application uses the notification for the first time, it shows up in the list in the app for Fitbit, and then you can turn it on or off. So in other words, let's say you have a weather alert program, and a weather alert comes through after you've installed the phone. Well, now in the phone menu, you'll be able to go in and pick, hey, yeah, I want to get that weather alert on my watch. And so you can pick that, and then from that point forward, you'll get weather alerts on your watch. So I actually have a long list of different things that I get pushed to the watch so that I can actually see them. Weather alerts, text messages, emails, Amazon.com when you ship something or when it's delivered, or tonight I had a delivery come in and it notified me 7 stops away, see where your package is. And then, when I knew that the guy was about to show up at my door. So the notifications are pretty cool. The exercise portion of it is really, really great. The battery life is great. The water resistance is great. The toughness is great. There's multiple sensors on the back, and I've read on the forums, and please people don't quote me on this. I know it has multiple ways of sensing the heart rate. It's a green light most of the time, and it adjusts the brightness of it depending on the distance between the back of the watch and your skin. But interestingly, when you wake up in the morning, it's a red light that's sensing your heart rate. I'm not sure exactly why that is, but I've read on the Fitbit forums that it's just the way the engineers designed this thing to be efficient. Rumor has it that this also has, although it doesn't appear anywhere in the software, an SpO2 sensor, which potentially at some point down the road could sense your oxygenation level of your blood, which is pretty cool. The watch bands are interchangeable. They're not as interchangeable as, say, an Apple Watch where you just pull it out, but there's a little pin here and you grab it and you pull it and it comes apart, and then that's really simple. Putting the band back on is a little bit trickier, so you might spend a minute or two fiddling with it, trying to get the band back on, which makes it a little less of a utility than the Apple Watch. You can swipe up at any point to see your charge level, the date, the number of calories you've burned, your last exercise routine, your actual heart rate. You can press the left button to go back. The upper right button, well, this watch face doesn't support it, but normally the upper right button will bring you to the exercise menu, which is here. A couple of other features the watch has: you can set alarms from the watch itself. You can also install around 2.5 gigabytes of music to it. I don't have any installed because I just use my phone. I always have my phone with me. But if you don't want your phone with you, you can install music to the watch, and then you can use the watch's built-in Bluetooth to stream to an appropriate Bluetooth device for your workout. Here's a neat little app from the App Store. It's an airplane-style altimeter to tell you, how far you are. No, we're not at 9,800 feet. It's actually a negative number. I think you probably have to reset this thing. It's fine though. It works okay. There's a pretty cool little relax function in it that senses your heart rate and gives you an on-screen graphic to help you breathe and try to relax. And you can set it for 3 minutes or you can set it for 5 minutes. I've done a lot of bike rides with this. I love this thing for riding my bike. It's way more accurate than my cycling computer. And unfortunately, my cycling computer, and I've been using, the wheel size to input the circumference of the wheel in all these computers over the year. And I've always assumed that many of the rides that I do were a specific distance. But now that I've got this, and it actually, is GPSing my whole ride for me. It was the same thing with Strava, but I found out that my rides are just a little bit shorter than they actually are. So some of my 15-mile rides were actually more like 14 and a half, but happy accidents, right? You can just get more exercise. Overall, I love this thing. It really, really, really works great. There's a decent amount of apps, free ones in the App Store. There's literally over 100 different watch faces available. A lot of them are free, some of them you have to pay for. It just works great. Can't say enough good things about it. I haven't had any problems with it. I'm hoping that this thing lasts as long as I have calculated that it will. If the lithium battery in this thing lasts for 500 charges and it lasts 4 days between charges, then we should get about 2,000 days out of use out of this before the battery really starts to degrade, which is pretty cool because that's, let's see, that's about 4 years of use, 5 years. The little copper items here that you see on the bottom are where it makes the connection to the charging cradle. You cannot feel those when it's on your wrist. In fact, it's one of the more comfortable watches that I've ever worn. So if you're looking for a really good exercise tracker with a full feature set as far as like health in the app that shows you your an estimate of your cardiovascular health, a calorie tracking portion of it's for weight loss, and it can more accurately predict how many calories you are burning during a day because it has your heart rate and it has how much motion you've had over the day, how much water you drink. There's some female health stuff in there if you're a gal and you want to use it for that. You can set goals, and they can be exercise goals or calorie goals or number of minutes moving goals or stairs climbed goals or steps made goals. All kinds of really fun stuff, metrics that help you better define your life. And one of the coolest portions of this is it actually is able to detect and show you your sleep and sleep stages. So you'll see when you wake up the first day after you've had it, how many hours you slept total, how many hours you were awake, how much REM sleep, how much light sleep, and how much deep sleep, and it points it out on a graph. So if you're somebody who has sleep issues, this is really cool because you can change that pillow and see if it makes a difference, or maybe make it cooler, or maybe make it warmer. How do you quantify a harder bed or a softer bed? Am I sleeping better? Am I sleeping worse? Because, sometimes you don't really know when exactly it is you fall asleep, because there are times when you're half asleep for a while, or you're, partially conscious. And I guess there's differences in your metabolism or your heart rate that this thing can actually see and use as data for the sleep. So yep, it's all really cool. If you're thinking of getting one of these as a exercise monitor and something to help quantify all the variables in your life as far as health, this is great. As far as a smartwatch go, it gets notifications and you can install some apps on it. It does everything that I needed to do because honestly, my phone's in my pocket, so how much do you need this thing to do? I don't want to reach in my pocket to see what the text message said or what the Amazon or weather alert thing said. So it's great for that. I don't need this to play video, and I don't need to make a phone call on this. I'm not Dick Tracy. It does a really good job for what it is, and for the price, I think that honestly it can't be beat. So if you're on the fence on one of these, if exercise is your thing, you won't be disappointed. If you really want a more powerful computer on your wrist that does audio and video and potentially could make phone calls, then this is probably not for you. But all in all, I'd say it's a great little device, and you're going to have a really, really great time with it.